Have you ever noticed that the same situations, the same people, the same little triggers seem to set you off again and again? You tell yourself you won't react next time, but when the moment comes, you feel that rush of irritation, that surge of frustration, and just like that, you're trapped again. But what if I told you that you never have to feel that way again? That you could walk through life with absolute peace, no matter what's happening around you, and your inward state. The first step is understanding a simple truth. Nothing outside of you has power over you unless you allow it. We have been conditioned to believe that our emotions are dictated by circumstances, but in reality, we are the ones creating those emotions. The problem is, most people don't realize they are living in a cycle of unconscious reactions. They wake up, remember their problems, and step right back into the emotional state of yesterday. Greek, the emotional addiction. You see, anger isn't just a reaction, it's an addiction. Your brain and body have memorized how to be angry. You've practiced it so many times that it's automatic. And just like any addiction, if you don't interrupt the cycle, it will keep running the same program over and over again. So how do you break free? You start by becoming aware. The moment you feel that anger rising, pause. Take a breath. Recognize that you are about to repeat an old habit, and then choose differently. Observe, don't absorb. The world is full of people projecting their inner chaos onto others. But their energy only affects you if you absorb it. Instead of reacting, become the observer. Imagine yourself as a calm, still lake. No matter how strong the wind blows, the depths remain undisturbed. Recondition the mind and body. But here's the key. You must recondition your body and nervous system to respond differently. Meditation, breathwork, and mindfulness aren't just spiritual practices. They are tools to rewire your brain. Every time you choose calm over anger, you create a new neural pathway. Do it enough times, and that becomes your new default state. Live beyond the ego. Most anger comes from the ego's need to control, to be right, to defend itself. But what if you no longer needed to prove anything to anyone? What if you realize that nothing anyone says or does can actually diminish you? The moment you release the need to defend your identity, you become untouchable. We create a new identity. Who would you be if you never got angry again? Imagine it. See yourself walking through life, unshaken by circumstances, unaffected by negativity. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined experience. So the more you practice being this calm, unbothered version of yourself, the more your brain rewires to make it a reality. Closing with a challenge. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, remember, you have a choice. You can react the way you always have, or you can step into a new version of yourself. One that is no longer a slave to anger, but the master of their emotions. The question is, who do you choose to be? Everything you experience in life is filtered through your internal state. If you wake up feeling frustrated, every interaction, every situation, every minor inconvenience will seem like an attack. But if you wake up feeling centered and in control, those same situations won't even register as problems. This is because your emotions are not dictated by the outside world. They are generated from within you. Most people live as if they are at the mercy of their environment. They let circumstances determine their mood, reacting unconsciously to whatever is happening around them. Someone cuts them off in traffic and they get angry. A coworker says something irritating and they stew over it all day. They live in a constant state of reaction, never realizing that their emotional state is something they can regulate. But here's the truth. The only way to truly be free is to master your internal state. That means learning to regulate your emotions instead of being controlled by them. It means waking up in the morning and deciding how you are going to feel before the world has a chance to decide for you. Think about this. If someone can make you angry, that means they have control over you. If a situation can disturb your peace, that means your emotions are being dictated by external factors. And if you are constantly reacting to the world around you, then you are not in control. Your environment is. The key to breaking free from this pattern is awareness. You must become conscious of how you feel in every moment and recognize that you always have a choice. When something triggers you, pause, take a breath, remind yourself that you are the one in charge of how you feel. The moment you realize that you have the power to decide your response, you reclaim your freedom. This is not just a mental exercise, it is a practice. You must train yourself daily to become the master of your emotions rather than their servant. Through meditation, breath work, and mindfulness, you can condition your nervous system to remain calm in any situation. The more you practice, the more you build resilience. Until one day, no matter what happens, you remain grounded, unshaken, and in complete control of your internal state. Anger, frustration, irritation, these aren't just emotions. They're patterns deeply wired into your brain and body. Most people don't realize that they are addicted to these emotional states. They wake up and immediately recall something from yesterday that made them upset. They replay old arguments in their minds, reliving the same frustration over and over again. Without even knowing it, they are reinforcing their addiction to anger, making it part of their identity. This happens because the brain operates like a record of the past. Every time you react in anger, your brain fires the same neural circuits, strengthening them like a muscle. The more you react, the more automatic the response becomes. Over time, anger isn't just something you feel, it becomes something you are. Your body memorizes the emotional response so well that it doesn't even need your conscious mind to trigger it. Just like any addiction, breaking free requires awareness and effort. The first step is recognizing the pattern. Start observing yourself. When do you tend to get irritated? What situations trigger you? Instead of justifying your anger, ask yourself, is this emotion serving me, or is it just an old program running in my mind and body? Once you see the pattern, you must interrupt it. The next time you feel anger rising, don't react automatically. Pause, take a deep breath, remind yourself that this is just an old habit trying to pull you in. The more you disrupt the pattern, the weaker it becomes. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about breaking free from the unconscious loop that keeps you stuck in the past. It's about choosing who you want to be instead of letting your past experiences dictate your future. The moment you stop feeding the emotional addiction, your brain begins to rewire. The neural circuits that once fired for anger will weaken, and new pathways for calm, control, and peace will take their place. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Eventually, situations that used to trigger you won't even affect you, not because you're ignoring them, but because your brain and body no longer crave the chemical rush of anger. You will have conditioned yourself to a new emotional baseline, one of balance, clarity, and absolute freedom. People will always project their inner world onto others. Their frustrations, insecurities, fears, and emotional wounds often spill out in the form of criticism, negativity, or even outright hostility. But here's the truth. None of it has anything to do with you. It is simply a reflection of what's happening inside them. The problem is that most people absorb this energy, taking it personally, reacting to it, and allowing it to dictate their state of mind. But what if you could observe without absorbing? What if, instead of reacting, you simply noticed? When someone is rude or aggressive, what if you saw it not as an attack on you, but as a glimpse into their internal struggles? What if you trained yourself to remain neutral, understanding that their actions are a product of their conditioning, their emotions, their own unresolved issues? The key is detachment. This doesn't mean being indifferent or emotionless. It means developing the awareness to separate your internal state from external circumstances. Think of it this way. If someone throws a hot coal at you, you don't have to catch it. The moment you engage, arguing, defending, getting offended, you've picked up that coal and now you're the one getting burned. Instead, become the observer. When someone tries to provoke you, step back mentally and watch. Notice their words, their tone, their body language. Instead of reacting, ask yourself, what must this person be feeling to act this way? When you shift from taking things personally to observing human behavior with curiosity, you free yourself from emotional entanglement. This level of awareness takes practice, but once you develop it, you become untouchable. You move through the world with a quiet confidence, unaffected by negativity, drama, or conflict. You stop wasting energy on things that don't serve you. You become the calm center in any storm, watching, understanding, but never absorbing. Your mind and body are in constant communication, and over time, they become programmed to respond to life in a predictable way. If you've spent years reacting with anger, frustration, or stress, your nervous system has memorized those responses. It's no longer just a mental reaction. It's a physiological state wired into your being. This is why breaking free from negative emotions isn't just about thinking differently. You must recondition both your mind and body to respond in a new way. Every emotion you feel triggers a biochemical response. When you get angry, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense up, and your body prepares for conflict. The more often this happens, the more familiar it becomes. Your body starts to crave that chemical state, just like an addiction. Even when nothing is wrong, you might find yourself seeking reasons to feel frustrated simply because your body expects that emotional high. To break this cycle, you have to teach your body how to relax. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or suppressing emotions. It means actively training yourself to respond differently. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through breath work. When you control your breathing, you signal to your nervous system that you are safe. A deep, slow breath can interrupt the stress response instantly, shifting your body from survival mode to a state of calm. Meditation is another essential tool. When you sit in stillness, focusing on the present moment, you detach from the habitual patterns of the past. You create space between a trigger and your response. Over time, meditation rewires your brain, strengthening the neural pathways associated with peace and emotional stability. Movement is also crucial. Your body stores emotions. Stress, anger, and frustration get trapped in your muscles, posture, and even your facial expressions. Physical practices like yoga, stretching, or even a simple walk help release that stored tension, resetting your nervous system. And the key is consistency. Every time you choose a new response, whether it's taking a breath instead of reacting, meditating instead of dwelling on frustration, or moving your body instead of holding on to tension, you are training yourself to operate from a new baseline. At first it may feel unfamiliar, but the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, calmness and control won't just be something you practice, they will become who you are. The ego is the part of you that craves control, validation, and recognition. It wants to be right, to be seen, to be acknowledged. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or disrespects you, the ego immediately reacts, defending, justifying, proving itself. This is why so many people live in a constant state of emotional reactivity. They are unconsciously protecting an image of themselves, fighting battles that don't need to be fought. But here's the truth. The strongest, most powerful version of you has nothing to prove. When you stop living through the ego, you stop being controlled by external events. Someone insults you? It doesn't matter because your self-worth is not based on their opinion. Someone disagrees with you? That's fine, because you no longer need validation to feel secure. You become untouchable, not because you suppress your emotions, but because you no longer tie your sense of self to how others perceive you. The ego thrives on comparison. It constantly looks at others and either feels superior or inferior. It wants to win, to be the best, to maintain a certain image. But living through the ego is exhausting. It keeps you in a cycle of frustration, competition, and conflict. Every perceived slight becomes a personal attack. Every disagreement feels like a challenge to your identity. Freedom begins when you detach from the need to defend your ego. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of arguing, you listen. Instead of proving, you let go. This doesn't mean you allow people to walk over you. It means you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. When you are no longer ruled by the ego, you move through life with effortless confidence. You stop reacting to negativity because it has no hold on you. The most powerful people in the world are not the loudest, the most aggressive, or the most defensive. They are the ones who remain centered no matter what happens. They know who they are, and because of that, nothing outside of them can shake them. When you live beyond the ego, you step into that power. You become unbothered, untouchable, and completely free. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every reaction you have is shaping your identity. Most people believe their personality is fixed, that they are just an angry person, or easily irritated, or someone who holds grudges. But this is not true. Your identity is nothing more than a collection of repeated thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that have been reinforced over time. The good news, you can change it. You can create a completely new version of yourself, one that is calm, unshakable, and free from emotional triggers. Your brain does not know the difference between a real experience and an imagined one. This means that every time you mentally rehearse a new way of being, your brain begins to rewire itself to match that vision. If you want to become someone who never gets angry or bothered, you must first see yourself as that person. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a situation that would normally trigger you. But this time, instead of reacting, you remain completely calm. You feel light, centered, untouchable. The more you practice this, the more real it becomes to your brain. But identity is not just about thinking. It is about action. You must begin acting as the person you want to become. Ask yourself, how does the calmest, most centered version of me respond to this situation? How do they speak? How do they carry themselves? What do they focus on? Every time you choose to respond differently, you reinforce the new identity. At first, it may feel unnatural, but over time, it becomes second nature. Think of it like learning a new skill. The first time you try, it feels awkward, but with repetition, it becomes effortless. The same is true for emotional mastery. The more you practice being calm, the more your brain and body adapt, until one day, it's no longer something you do, it's simply who you are. You are not stuck being the person you were yesterday. You are not bound by old emotional patterns. You have the power to create yourself anew, to design a version of you that is immune to negativity, that moves through life with ease, confidence, and clarity. The question is not whether you can become this person. The question is, will you choose to? How to never get angry or bothered with anyone. Opening with a thought-provoking question. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "They made me so angry," or "I just can't help but react that way"? We've all been there. The frustration builds, the emotions rise, and before we know it, we're stuck in the same loop of irritation, conflict, and regret. But what if I told you that you never have to feel that way again? That no person, no situation, no external force could ever shake your peace, unless you allowed it. The truth is, most people are not in control of their emotions. They are controlled by them. They wake up already carrying the weight of yesterday, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same frustrations, and repeating the same reactions. They believe they're responding to life, but in reality, they're just running an old program. But here's the good news. You can reprogram it. You can train your mind and body to remain calm, no matter what happens around you. Let's start with a simple fact. You are the creator of your internal state. The world does not dictate your emotions. You do. People can say or do whatever they want, but it's not their words or actions that cause your reaction. It's your interpretation of them. When you understand this, you take back your power. You realize that nothing outside of you has control over how you feel. The moment you wake up and consciously decide how you are going to feel, before the world has a chance to decide for you, you begin to master your emotional state. But for many, anger isn't just a reaction, it's an addiction. The body becomes conditioned to certain emotional states, and over time, those emotions become familiar, even comfortable. Your brain gets wired to expect frustration, irritation, or resentment, and so, without even realizing it, you seek out situations that reinforce those emotions. This is why people replay past conflicts in their minds, why they dwell on negativity, why they react the same way over and over again. They are trapped in an emotional cycle. But like any addiction, the first step to breaking free is awareness. The moment you recognize that anger is a habit, not a necessity, you can start to break the pattern. Now here's where everything changes. What if instead of reacting, you simply observed? Imagine someone insults you, raises their voice, or does something disrespectful. Instead of engaging, you step back mentally and watch. You don't absorb their energy. You don't take it personally. You recognize that their behavior is not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. When you stop internalizing other people's negativity, you become untouchable. But it's not enough to think differently. You must recondition your body as well. Every emotion you feel triggers a physical response. Anger increases your heart rate, tenses your muscles, and floods your body with stress hormones. If you've been living this way for years, your nervous system has memorized this reaction. To change, you must train your body to respond with calm instead of chaos. Breathwork, meditation, and mindfulness are not just abstract concepts. They are the tools that reset your nervous system, teaching your body that it no longer needs to react. The more you practice, the more your body aligns with your new emotional state. A major reason people get triggered is the ego's need to defend itself. The ego wants to be right, to be acknowledged, to be in control. But the moment you realize you have nothing to prove, you are free. When you stop reacting to every criticism, every disagreement, every perceived slight, you shift from being controlled by the world to mastering yourself. The strongest people are not those who argue the loudest or react the fastest. They are the ones who remain unshaken in the face of any storm. But here's the most powerful part. You can create a completely new version of yourself. You do not have to be the person who reacts, who gets upset, who loses control. Your identity is not fixed. Every time you choose a new response, you are rewriting who you are. If you consistently practice calmness, patience, and detachment, that is who you will become. Your brain will rewire, your body will adapt, and one day anger and frustration will feel like distant memories because they no longer belong to the person you have become. So the next time life tests you, remember, you are not your past reactions, you are not your emotions, you are the observer. You are the creator of your state of mind. You have the power to choose peace over anger, clarity over chaos, and freedom over reactivity. The question is, will you?